Hello my dear grade 8 students. So, we are going to start our new lesson in our grade 8 science syllabus. So, this new lesson is the unit 12 of your science syllabus. So, the unit 12 is reflecting about the life cycles of living organisms. Life cycles of living organisms. This is related to biology, the stream called biology, which we are going to study about the organisms. So, who are these organisms? Organisms are the ones who are living, right? We can define organisms are the ones who have a life, or the ones who are living. So, especially we can divide these organisms into three main categories as plants, animals and microorganisms. So, especially within this lesson part, we will be discussing how to or what are the special features that we can observe upon a life cycle or during a life cycle of a certain animal, right. Here within this lesson we will be discussing about several animals like butterfly, humans, rats, cockroaches and so on. And not only with the animals, we will be discussing about the plants also. How does the life process of plants are going to happen within the biosphere. Especially we are discussing about flowering plants. The life cycle of a flowering plant. Okay. And what is the importance of studying these life cycles of organisms, and those will be discussed. So, now let us move on to see. So, this is a brief introduction on what are the things that we are going to learn within this lesson part. So, now let us move on to see what are our main topics contained within the lesson. Okay, what are the main topics contained within the lesson? So, let us identify what are the head topics that we are about to learn within this lesson. So, within this lesson, my dear children, first of all we will be identifying what are the life cycles or life cycles of animals, right. First of all, we will be studying about the life cycles of animals. So, first of all, we will be learning what do you mean by a life cycle. Then we are heading to identify the life cycles of animals. If you take a certain organism, we will be studying first of all how does the life cycle of a certain organism is going to happen within the biosphere. Commonly, we are going to take like several plants and several animals in order to observe the life cycles. Then after, my dear children, we will be discussing about the animal life cycles. We are taking several animals and we are identifying different stages of them, and we are identifying the special stages of the life cycle. Then we are completing the life cycle and we are discussing about several features in each of these life cycles, right, and so on. So, this is the first topic that we are about to study. First of all, we are getting an introduction, or we are going to know, or we are get to know what do you mean by a life cycle process of an organism. Then after, we are going to study about life cycle of animals. Then the second topic will be discussing the life cycles of plants. So, after discussing the life cycles of animals, we will be discussing several details related to the life cycles of plants. Okay. Then we will be discussing the importance of learning life cycles. The importance of learning life cycles. Why do we need to study about life cycle? What's the reason? Okay. What's the point behind learning all of these stuff? How can we utilize this knowledge of life cycles when we are dealing in our day-to-day life activities, right? What is the purpose of studying these life cycles, right? How can we utilize these things? Those things will be discussed under the final part of the lesson, which the importance of studying life cycles. So my dear children, these are the things that we are going to learn within this lesson part about the life cycles of organisms, and here mainly we are discussing about the life cycles of plants and animals. Okay, life cycles of plants and animals. Especially we are taking several animals, not all of them, right? Not all the animals, but we are taking like specially several kinds of animals, right? And we are studying their special features under the life cycles. Then after that we'll be studying about the life cycles of plants, right? Here especially we are discussing about life cycles of flowering plants. Then finally the importance of studying life cycle. So now let's move on with the first topic, my dear children. Let's see what do you mean by a life cycle. Okay, so commonly within this first lesson part, we'll be discussing about the life cycle of organisms, life cycles of organisms. So let us get to know what do you mean by a life cycle, right? We'll take a brief idea, we'll take a brief discussion on what do you mean, right? What do you mean by a life cycle of an organism? So let's move on to see what do you mean by a life cycle of an organism. So you are given with the topic life cycles of organisms. So my dear children, it is given as the first point. See, by observing the environment carefully, you will notice that all living beings are born from an egg, a seed, or as a small creature, and they pass through many different stages. Now my dear children, you know that each and every animal, each and every organism, if you take a human being, right, if you take a human being is not going to, they are not going to born like the same way that we are adults, right? So if you take an infant human like a child is somewhat different than the adults. However, the child is the one who is becoming an adult, but there are different morphological features. Morphological features means external features, the features which we can observe from our sensory organs, okay, especially from eyes. Let's say that the features that we can observe, okay, so those things are morphological features. So when you are looking at a child, you can observe several features. They have very tiny legs, tiny arms, right? Their communication is not that much developed. They have less number of teeth, and like they can't even walk properly. They can't even stand properly. They eat very less amount of food, okay. So when an adult, when we check an adult, or when we compare an adult is somewhat different than the child. But however, the child is the one who is becoming an adult, right? So the child is passing different stages, like the childhood, then the teenage, right? Then the like 13 to 16, we call that age as the teenage period. Then after that, adult time period. So like that way, is passing several stages in the life. In each of these stages, their behavior, their food patterns, then their appearance, morphological features, all are going to differ from one stage to another stage. So not only in humans, but also in other organisms also we can observe these things. If you take a cat, so cat is first born as a small kitten, very small kitten. At the earlier stage of the life of kitten, they are very playful, so cute and playful. But however, when a cat is going to grow, from time to time, that playfulness is going to reduce with the time, right? The same thing happens to dogs as well, right? If you take any kind of an organism, especially if you take any kind of an animal, the same process can be identified, okay? So there are some other types of organisms who are getting hatched from an egg, okay? A way more different stage of a life. Now we are getting born onto this world, right? We are getting born onto this world and we are not coming through an egg. But however, there are organisms who are coming through an egg. If you take reptiles, fish, most of the fish and most of the reptiles and birds, they lay eggs, okay? They lay eggs. So egg is also considered as a one stage of the life cycle of those organisms, right? Within a shell, they are growing by utilizing the nutrition and all the other necessary stuff within the egg, okay, by taking these stuff within the egg. Then after that they are born to the world, okay. There are different stages between the life cycles, between the life process of organisms, okay. If you take a different organism like butterfly, what happens with the butterfly? Butterfly start with eggs first. Adult butterfly lay eggs on a surface of a leaf. Then these eggs are going to mature, and after that a caterpillar is going to born from the matured eggs. Caterpillar, a worm-like, like a worm-like animal, a caterpillar, okay. So the caterpillar is eating, right? The caterpillar is eating, or caterpillar is going to nourish from the leaves and flowers within the plant. So his food pattern is way more different at that stage, okay. Then gradually that caterpillar is making, like a egg-like thing which is called as a pupa, right? Pupa. It's like a nest made up with, like a tissue, special kind of a tissue layer, right? Pupa. Then finally that pupa is going to burst out and a beautiful butterfly is coming out. So within the pupa, the butterfly is somewhat inactive. I mean, like, for outside, we can't see any living activity. We can't clearly identify any living activity within the pupa. But however, caterpillar is not like that. Caterpillar is showing all the living activities like locomotion, right? Then the, respiration, nutrition, growth. These factors can be, or these characteristics can be clearly identified within the caterpillar. But however, in the pupal stage, we can't observe these things very clearly, okay. We even don't know whether the pupa is going to respire or not. We can't observe those things very clearly from outside. So like an inactive stage of the life. But however, when the butterfly is going to come out, is a way more different than the other types of organisms in the earlier stages of life. It's way more different than the caterpillar, right? So different stages can be observed between different organisms. So there are some organisms who are like similar to the, somewhat similar. The childhood is, or the beginning of the life is somewhat similar to the adult. Not exactly equal, but somewhat similar. Morphological features are definitely different to each other, but however, if you check, or if you take a child, right, I'm talking about humans. If you take a child with an adult, like we can see a small bit of a similarity between their morphological features. Not 100% getting changed into a different organism, but however, there are some organisms which 100% getting changed. For an example, the earlier case, butterfly. Now, the butterfly, they're going to start the life as eggs. Then after that, as a caterpillar, then a pupal stage, then after a butterfly. So, there are 4 different stages. Each of these stages, you can observe there is a way more different morphological features. Okay. From one stage to another, there are way more different morphological features. Even their nutrition pattern is also somewhat different. Butterfly is going to mainly take nectar as their main nutrition method, but however, the caterpillar is going to feed on leaves and flowers and all the other plant parts. But if you take a human infant and an adult, we usually depend on the food. Let's say rice. Okay, so we depend on rice. Just for an example, not only rice, we eat different types of food, but however, our main type of food is rice, no? So, even the child is having rice and we are also having rice. So, our nourishment pattern is somewhat similar starting from childish age to our adulthood. But however, over there, when you take a butterfly, their nourishment pattern is way more different. From stage to stage, their nourishment pattern is going to change. Okay. So, these are some examples where we can observe different stages of life cycles in different organisms, my dear children. So, it is given that by observing our normal biosphere, you can see that each and every organism, they pass several stages within their life. Even the humans also pass different stages within their life. If you take a plant, my dear children, plant also the same. Most of the plants, if you take a flowering plant, most of the flowering plants, they start in their life as a seed, right? That's the initial stage of their life, the first and foremost stage of the life in flowering plants. Seeds. Then these seeds are going to create a small plantlet by the germination process. Small plantlet. If you take small plantlet, there is no strong stem, and the stem is very weak. Stem is most of the times in green color, light green color. Leaves are not that much developed. We can't even observe a single bud or a flower, right? And my dear children, when some time is going to pass by, now the plantlet has become a plant, a small plant. Several leaves appear. Bottom of the stem become somewhat brownish in color, but however, the mid and the top is still in green color. Right? When time is going to pass by, once again, now the plant is going to become a small tree. Now we can see that the whole trunk or whole stem is in brownish color, and the stem is way more stronger than the earlier stages. Large number of leaves can be observed with branches, several branches. Right? Then when time is going to even pass by, right? Now we can observe a big tree. Now this tree has a very strong stem, a strong and larger stem. Very large number of, it's like uncountable number of leaves can be observed. Right? And there are flowers and fruits maybe. Large number of branches can be observed. And the plant is now taking like huge volume or huge space within the environment. And sometimes you can observe fruits. ripen fruits which can produce seeds even. Okay. Then these plants also produce seeds. Then these new seeds once again repeat the same process from the beginning. So if you take a plant also, my dear children, we can observe different stages: seed, plantlet, plant, small tree, then the big large tree. Like that way, we can observe different stages throughout their life. So, by observing the environment carefully, you will notice that all living beings, each and every living being, my dear children, by observing the environment quite clearly, each and every living being are born from an egg or a seed as a small creature. So, animals like birds, they start their life from an egg. Butterfly, they start their life from an egg. Seed plants, most of the times they start their life with a seed or as a small creature. Now humans, dogs, cats, they start their life as a small creature or small infant, right? A grown-up organism produces offspring of its own by the reproductive process. You know that each and every species is going to reproduce and to produce new organisms to the biosphere. So that's how each and every organism comes to our earth, right? 2 organisms, 2 or might be 1. Okay, so we'll be learning about the reproductive systems and the reproductive process in detail within grade 10 syllabus. Up to now, you just remember reproduction means production of new organisms in the same species by 2 mature organisms, right? 2 adult organisms, mature organisms, and they should be in the same species. Okay, they should be in the same species. So if you take a certain species, their species is going to reproduce by 2 adult organisms. They're going to create a new organism, and this process is the one which is referred as the reproduction. So upon reproduction, you know that new organisms are being born to the world. So these organisms pass different stages when they are becoming an adult. So these stages are repeated in each generation through, and it ensures the survival of living organisms in the environment. So if you take these stages in each and every, right, in each and every generation, we can observe these stages. It's not going to happen within one generation, but it's going to happen in all the generations. Parents, they also follow the same methods, right? They also follow the same stages. Your parents also followed the same stages like you. Their parents also followed the same generation like your parents and you. So each of these generations, they are going to through with same stages, okay, and to become an adult. For you guys also the same thing would happen. Now you guys are still in the childish age, teenagers. Now after like 10 or 15 years, you become adult. Before 10 or 15 years, you were still a child. Before like 10 years, you were still a child, right? So like that way, if you take any kind of an organism, any kind of a human being, no matter the generation, each and every human being came to this world as a child, and gradually they have developed to become an adult. Okay? So these stages are repeated in every generation through, and it ensures the survival of the living organisms in the environment. So it ensures the living process in the environment. Okay, these stages ensures the living process, or it ensures the birth of organisms and continuation of life in the environment. So my dear children, life cycle thing is pretty much simple. It's not that much of a big thing. So life cycles of organisms means actually passing different stages in their life, right? Passing different stages in their life or within their life, right? From a child or from an infant to an adult, right? So that's what do you mean by a life cycle in simple. So let's head on to see what are the other contents. So you are given with what do you mean by the life cycle. So life cycle means in simple here is given the sequence of events in stages of development as a cyclic process which a living organism passes from its birth to death is termed as a life cycle. The different stages, right? Sequence of different stages, patterns of different stages passed by organisms upon their life or on their life as a cyclic process. Cyclic process means the same thing is going to happen for the next generation and for the next generation and for the next as well. And it ensures the survival or the life within the earth of that organism. Okay. For an example, I can write and show it to you like this. Then child. Child is becoming a teenager. Right? Teenager. Then teenager is becoming an adult. Then adult is once again going to give birth to a young child. So that child is again becoming a teenager. Then that teenager is again becoming an adult. Adults are going to give birth to young ones or child. So this is a cycle. It's going to happen with like a cycle. So if you take like an organism, okay, we'll take a frog, or else we'll take a different one. Frog, will be discussing that thing in detail now. So we'll take a bird. So bird, if you take a bird, they lay eggs first. Then a small bird comes out. Then that small bird becomes a large one. Then once again that large bird is going to lay eggs. Then small birds are coming out. Then once again those small birds becoming large birds. Then they lay eggs. So as you can see here, these sequences are going to happen from generation to generation as a cycle. Each and every organism within our living environment, they pass their cyclic process when they are becoming an adult. Okay, each and every organism passes the same process. So if you take a plant, what happens with a plant? I can show it to you like this. Seed, plantlet, plant, then again seeds. See, for each and every plant also we can observe these cyclic processes. Seed is going to produce a small plantlet. Then that plantlet is going to grow and produce, or it's going to create a larger plant. Okay. So that larger plant once again going to produce seeds, flowers and seeds. Then once again from those flowers and seeds, a small plantlet is getting created. Okay, small plantlet is getting created. Once again that plantlet is going to create, or it's going to produce a new large tree. So that large tree once again is going to produce seeds. So for each and every organism, this is just for an example, I took only 3, but however, if you take each and every organism who are living in the environment, I took a plant, a special kind of an animal, and a special us humans. So no matter which animal or which organism that you are going to take in our biosphere, each and every organism who are living in our biosphere, they pass several stages in their life in order to become an adult organism. So my dear children, these stages, right, the sequence of events in stages of development in life process, right, development in life process as a cycle. So this is a cyclic process. This is a cycle. Same thing is going to repeat from organism to an organism. So the sequence of events in stages of development as a cyclic process which a living organism passes from its birth to death is termed as a life cycle. So this is the life cycle of a human being. Life cycle of a human being. Each and every, right, each and every human being is going to pass, if they are going to become an adult, they are going to pass these stages one by one each. So life cycle means cyclic process of different stages of an organism. When they are becoming an adult, right, when they are becoming an adult from a childish organism. So this cyclic process is referred as the life cycle of an organism. Life cycle of an organism. The sequence of stages of life which an organism passes through from generation to generation when they are becoming an adult from infant or from a child. So this process is referred as the life cycle of an organism. Life cycle of an organism, right? The gradual development of organisms from young to a mature organism, right? This thing is going to happen like a cycle. That's why it is referred as the life cycle. So once again, my dear children, the sequence of events in stages of development as a cyclic process which a living organism passes from its birth to death is termed as a life cycle. So there are different life cycles. I have taken 3 organisms who are living within our biosphere, and these are the life cycles of those 3 organisms. So this is a human, this is a plant, okay, and this is a bird. Okay, 3 examples, 3 smaller examples. Okay, right then. So this is how to define a life cycle. This is what do you mean by a life cycle. So let's move on to see what are the other contents within the lesson. Now we will be studying about the life cycles of different organisms within, right, this lesson part next. So we will be studying about different life cycles of different organisms. Especially here we are taking several special kinds of organisms, special animals, which we can identify the life cycle pretty much well. Okay. So we will be taking several special organisms here in order to identify the different stages of their life cycles. So here now we are going to study about the life cycles of different organisms. So, studying about the cycles of life cycles of organisms. So, you will be needing these things now. When you are studying something, you will be needing some resources, no? So, the resources that will be needing in studying the life cycles, you can use the pictures, right? Definitely you can use the pictures and images, or else you can use videos which refers to that particular animal about their life cycle. So, we will be needing several figures, animated pictures and videos in order to identify the life cycles of organisms. So, we will be needing some pictures of organisms with the stages of their life cycles. So, now within this image you can see there are several images, right. So, if you take a frog like this, so frog, they start their life as an egg, then this is called as a tadpole, a fish like organism, tadpole, fish like organism. They can be observed within aquatic environments only. They breathe not using lungs, they do not utilize lungs to breathe, okay, or to respire. Tadpole is going to use gills. Gills are the ones which are utilized by tadpole in order to do their respiration, as they are living in aquatic environments. If you take a tadpole out from water, definitely the tadpole will die, because it can't breathe from normal air in our environment. It should be placed within water, otherwise it will die. But however, when that tadpole is gradually becoming a frog, like in the picture given, you can see that the morphological features are way more different than tadpole and the frog. Okay, tadpole is like a fish, but however, we can't observe any fish-like structure within the frogs, right. And also, if you take their respiratory organ, earlier it was gills, but however, if you take a frog, okay, frog is going to respire through lungs. Frog is going to respire through lungs. So, my dear children, there is a way more different process among these organisms, among each of these stages of the organisms. So, that is why it is important to study about these stages one by one each. So, this is the life cycle of a frog. So, we will be studying about life cycle of frogs in detail within our lesson, right, when you are going further with the lesson. Up to now, just a brief. So, the brief is starting from eggs, they are going to develop a tadpole. Tadpole is now becoming a frog, okay. Then rats, this is an adult rat. Then these are the very smaller, or the creature, the smallest creature of the rat, the newly born creature of the rat. Even they don't have, hair-like structures within their body, right, very smaller. And even their eyes are even not open to the world still. Eyes are even not open to the world still. They are, like if you take the size of the creature, it's very smaller in size, very smaller in size. Okay. They feed on mother's milk, as they are mammals. Okay, they feed on mother's milk as they are mammals. So, like that way, these features can be identified within the small infant or smallest creature of the rat. When this rat is becoming a teenager like this, now he is somewhat similar to the adult, right. Now, it is somewhat similar to the adult. You can see that only the size is getting changed. size is somewhat smaller, but however, now we can observe the hairs, okay, and well developed, right? The creature is well developed now, okay, and unlike the earlier, or unlike the like the smaller stage, now his eyes are well opened and he is very sensitive to the outer environment, right? So my dear children, this is the second stage of the development of rats, okay. Now if you take our life cycle, right, this is our childish age and this is the teenage age of ours, then this is the adult, okay. So if you take a rat, you can see that unlike the frog, their body structures are somewhat similar, not 100% similar, but like up to 80 to 90% they have similar life stages. By looking at a small rat or small creature that came out, you can say that it is a type of a rat at least. But however, when you see this figure, this life cycle, the life cycle of a frog, by looking at if you don't have a sound idea about the tadpole, right, by looking at a tadpole, you might think that, this is not a tadpole, it's not going to become a fish, it's not going to become a frog, it's a fish. And sometimes, like in your, I think like when I was a kid, I had this kind of a, experience, right? I had this kind of a experience. One day when I was coming, I had a pond in my garden. So one day when I was checking the pond, I could see that there were a small bit of, fish wandering here and there on the pond. I didn't know what kind of fish are they, but however, they had a big belly, right? Like their body is somewhat larger than the latter part, I mean their tail, okay. They like this, they were like this, larger body like this, but however, they are like this, okay. So I was wondering, what are these special, who are these special fish? How do they came to my pond? So my father told me that these are the ones who are called as tadpoles. So till then I don't know who are tadpoles. So in the same way, you might also have the same experience. By looking at the tadpole, you can't see that, or you can't say that this is going to be a frog at the near future, right? My father told me that this one is going to become a frog after some time and it's going to eat your fish, right? So by that way, I knew that these things are, tadpoles. So if you don't know about the process of frogs, if you don't know about the tadpoles, then also, my dear children, I know that for sure you can't identify whether this life stage is referring to a frog or not, whether this stage is creating a frog or not, okay. So by just looking at a tadpole, we can't decide whether this organism is going to become a frog or not, right? It's like a different process, way more different process. So some organisms, they go through in a significant change of life cycles. Their life stages cannot be identified from one stage to another. They have way more different life cycles. Life cycles means their stages are way more different from one to another. Their morphological features are like totally different from one to another. But however, when observing life cycles of organisms, there are some organisms like they have somewhat similar stages. Their stages are somewhat similar, not 100% similar, but somewhat similar. By looking at the infant or by looking at the first stage of the life, we can decide what type of an organism is it. But however, right, there are some organisms, by looking at the earlier stages, we can't guarantee. I mean, like, if you know them very well, then we can identify. But however, if a certain person do not know about the life cycles, then they might confuse. They will not be able to identify who that animal is. Okay, it's because their morphological features, their external features are way more different from one stage to another. So the better example is the frog. So frog is an organism like that. From stage to stage, their morphological features are way more different from one stage to another. But however, if you take a rat, their morphological features are somewhat similar, not 100%, like 80 to 90% similar. By looking at this young one, you can say that once again, or in the end, it's going to develop into a rat, because their body is somewhat similar to the adult rat. That's why. So these guys, like rat, these organisms, they do not go in significant change. Significant change cannot be observed within their life cycles. Okay, their stages are somewhat similar to the earlier stages. Then another one, this is cockroach. So cockroaches, they start their life from eggs. Then the egg is going to produce a small creature, small cockroach called the nymph. This nymph is somewhat similar to the cockroach, the adult cockroach, but there are some morphological features. By looking at the nymph, we can say that it's a type of a cockroach. But however, there are some morphological features, like there are some special morphological features which can be identified within the adult, but not within the nymph. Okay, small creature, not within the small creature, but within the adult we can observe. For an example, nymph do not have wings. However, adult cockroach, they have. Okay, so by looking at these two figures also, you can observe there is a considerable change within their morphological features, right? Here their body shapes and their appearance and the morphological features are somewhat similar. Up to 90% we can say similar. But 90% means actually when you are looking at these things, we can actually say that they are 100% equal. 90% equal means majority is getting equal, no. By looking at this infant, you can say that ultimately he is going to produce, or it's going to be an adult rat. But just by looking at this thing. Okay. So here we can say that their body shape and within their life cycle, their body shape is similar from stage to stage. There are no dramatical changes within their life stages. Okay, we can say that similar. Here 100% dissimilar, right? It's not getting similar at all. 100% dissimilar. Totally getting, right, dissimilar. The eggs are way more different than tadpole, and the tadpole is way more different than the frog. Here, when you check the cockroach, eggs are having a different, way more different life stage. However, there is a considerable change between cockroach and nymph. But we can say that like 50-50, like half. there is a difference, but not entirely they are different, but however there is a like half to half, 50-50 difference between their life stages from nymph to adult cockroach. Here similar, here 100% dissimilar, here 50% to 50% similar, dissimilar nature can be observed. Okay. Once again, when you are taking or when you are observing the life cycle of a mosquito, so I will erase this thing. So, life cycle of a mosquito starting with eggs, then the larva, mosquito larva can be observed. Mosquito larva, you know, like they can swim here and there within the water. If you remove water, definitely that larva is going to die. From larva to mosquito, there is a dramatical change within their life. From larva to mosquito, we can say that there is a significant change within their life stage. By looking at larva, you can't say that finally this thing is going to become a mosquito directly. I mean, like, if you have the knowledge, you can. Earlier also I explained that thing, right? If you have the knowledge, if you have experience whether this thing is going to become a mosquito, then you would know. But however, just by looking at these figures, you can't say that, right? There is no direct relationship between this earlier or this, you know, like immature organism and this matured organism. We can't say a direct link, we can't say similarity, we can't see a dissimilarity between these two, right? There is no similarity between these two. So, my dear children, like in the previous case, where the life cycle of frog, here we can see, or here we can observe, okay, here we can observe a way more different, right, a way more different life cycles between the mosquito. So, my dear children, to get more sound knowledge about their life cycles of these organisms, we'll head on to observe several video clips. So, by observing these video clips, you can get even more knowledge, even more good understanding about their life cycles. So, let's observe these video clips regarding their life cycles of frog and a rat, and the life cycle of a cockroach and mosquito. So, we will observe these life cycles and we'll get a good understanding. Rather than looking at the pictures, those video clips will give you a more and a good sound knowledge about their life cycles. So, let's observe these clips, and once again we'll come back to the classroom to discuss the rest. So my dear children, you observed the video clips. So like I said, when I was explaining the life cycles of these organisms, you could clearly see that by observing the clips also you could see that some organisms they go through with different stages of life cycles with dramatical changes with their morphological features. But however, there are some organisms which are like similar, they show similar features, or they show similar morphological features when they are going to become an adult from a less mature or from an infant. Okay, right then. So these are several examples for organisms, right, that show different life stages and life cycles in life cycle. Okay, so now let's head on to observe, organisms. It's not proper to consider. If you take the term organism, then it's not proper to take only animals, because organisms are in three types as microorganisms, animals and plants. However, we won't be able to observe microorganisms as they are not visible to our naked eye, but it's important to discuss about animals and plants both. Okay, so earlier we discussed the life cycle of several animals. Now it's time to see and to discuss life cycles of plants. Okay, life cycles of plants. So if you take a plant, most of the times we'll be taking flowering plants. Okay, most of the times we'll be taking flowering plants, my dear children. So here we'll be needing organisms. So organisms, now within this stage we'll be checking about plants. So first of all, a paddy plant is given. So this is a grown up paddy plant, right, that can produce seeds, paddy seeds. So this is a paddy seed. You can observe this is a seed, paddy seed. Then paddy seed is going to provide a seedling, or we can say that a plantlet. Small plantlet. Then that plantlet is going to produce once again a paddy plant, right? Small plantlet, then the paddy plant. So it's given here paddy plant, so I'm not going to write it down once again. So the seed is producing a small plantlet, then that small plantlet is producing a paddy plant. Now when you observe the life cycle of plants, most of the plants, I mean like all the plants, we can say all the plants, there is no problem in it. All the plants are similar, right, and they are showing somewhat similar. I mean like their life stages or their stages in life cycle are somewhat similar. Means like if you take a paddy seed is going to provide a paddy seedling or paddy plantlet, which is also in the same nature of the adult plant. By looking at a seedling or by looking at a plantlet of paddy, we can say that directly, this plant is a paddy plant. By looking at a certain plantlet of a mango, we can say that this plant is a mango plant. So within the plants, unlike animals, we can't see any dramatical changes within their life cycles, right? Their life stages are somewhat similar from one stage to another. Okay, seed is the only change, right? Seed is the only change that we can't, get a similarity between the adult and the seed. We can't get a clear similarity. But however, when the seed is growing gradually from a plantlet to a tree, we can observe very clear similarities between the tree and the plantlet. So unlike animals, almost all the plants go in the same way as according to the figures given in here, right? Only thing is their name and their, like how the or way they are growing is getting differed. Okay, each and every plant is going to do the same thing as per to the figures given in here. Their stages are somewhat similar and their growth is somewhat similar from stage to stage. From stage to stage, by looking at the plant, we can directly say that now this plant is they're going to belong to this kind of species. Like that we can directly tell the species. So we can't observe dramatical changes, any dramatical changes like the animals. So if in the second figure you can observe a jack plant. So in the same way, it start with the seed, jack seed, then it's going to produce a small jack plant, right? So if you take the leaves, by looking at the leaves, we can say that this is jack. Even though their size is somewhat different, not the leaf, but the trunk and the tree is somewhat different, their size is somewhat different. By looking at the plant leaves, we can directly say it is a jack plant. Only the size of the plant is getting differed here, right? The other morphological features are very similar to the jack plant itself. Okay, adult jack plant itself. So when you make a wound or when you make a cut on the surface, you can see that jack glue is coming out. In the same way, when you insert a small bit of a cut or when you give out a wound to the top part of the jack plantlet over here, we can observe jack glue. Okay. So my dear children, this structure is similar to the structure of the jack plant as well. Okay. So then after what will happen, jack plant is going to produce jackfruit, and from that jackfruit seeds are coming out. From the jackfruit seeds are coming out. So by looking at these figures, you can see that, okay, almost all the plants, they have similar stages within their life cycle. They do not undergo in dramatical changes within their life cycle. They have a somewhat similar nature. Okay. So as we did in the earlier part when we are studying about the animals, let's go and observe several video clips regarding the life cycles of plants, different plants. And from these video clips also, you will get a good knowledge and you can clearly identify, right, the stages and the several stages and the life cycle of a plant, and you may identify the similarity between their life cycle stages, right? By that way, you may come into conclusion that, right, you will definitely come into a conclusion that if you take the life cycle of a plant, they are pretty much similar. We can't observe any dramatical morphological features from one stage to another. So my dear children, let's head on to observe those video clips, right, and then once again we'll come back and we'll discuss the further things related to the lesson. Right, my dear children. So, we studied about the organisms, right, and their life cycles. And my dear children, by using several video clips also, we got a sound knowledge about their life cycles, right? Now let's move on to see what are the other things that we need to do within this activity. So method is really simple. We already discussed that thing and we followed up the method. What was that? We observed pictures given in the figures and we identified the different stages of each organism by looking at pictures and also by looking at the video clips. Then now we are going to make the different stages in order to write down their life cycle of each organism. In each organism, now we are going to write down how they are going to behave, okay, or what are their life stages. So if you take a frog, my dear children, I told you that this is the frog and these are the eggs and the tadpole, right? Then if you take a cockroach, this is eggs, this one is called the nymph and the cockroach, right, cockroach. Then the adult rat, okay, adult rat. Then adult rat is going to give birth to infant rat. Then this is the young rat. Then that young rat is once again becoming an adult rat, okay. So that adult rat are going to produce infant rats. Then if you take the life cycle of a mosquito, life cycle of a mosquito is somewhat different than that. Here eggs, this stage is the larval stage, larva, like a small bit of a worm floating on water, larva. Then this is the pupal stage, pupa. In pupal stage, I told you that they are like most of the times inactive, right? Like when you are discussing the life cycle of a butterfly, I told you about the pupal stage. So pupa in mosquito, they are like on the surface and floating, okay, they are inactive. I mean, like these guys can locomote, but however they can't, they like stuck to the surface of the water, the pupal stage of the mosquito, right? Then finally that pupa is getting converted into mosquito, right? Mosquito. Right then. So these are the several stages of life cycles of that organisms that we identified. So we took several pictures and we observed several video clips. From that we identified the stages of their life cycles separately. So in these organisms, like the frog, they are going to produce eggs, then eggs are getting converted to tadpole, then tadpoles are becoming frogs. Adult rat, infant rats, then the young rats, then once again young rats are becoming adult. Then again adult rats are producing infant rats, Infant rats are going to produce young rats. Young rats are becoming adult. If you take a cockroach, first of all, eggs can be observed. Eggs are producing small creatures of cockroaches which are named as nymphs. Then nymph is becoming a cockroach after some time. Then that adult cockroach is now going to produce eggs once more to produce nymph and cockroaches. Cycle. Life cycle of a mosquito, it has 4 stages. Eggs, then after that larval stage, okay, larval stage, then pupa stage, inactive stage, then the mosquito. So like that here we can observe, right, here we can observe different stages of organisms when they are complete in their life, when they are going to complete their life, okay, right then. So in plants, my dear children, once again we can see seed, then plantlet, then the plant. Here it is paddy especially. So paddy seed, paddy plantlet, right, paddy plantlet, then the paddy plant. Once again in jack plant also, jack seed, jack plantlet, then the jack plant. In plants also we can observe this cyclic process when they are passing their life, when they are going to pass their life, okay. So when you have completed arranging stages of life cycles of plants and animals in order, you would have understood that life cycles of organisms can be built up. So by using these images and by using these video clips, my dear children, we build up the life cycles. We build up we found out that there are different stages of life within these each and every organism. So my dear children, now we came into a conclusion that finally, if we are going to observe each and every organism in our biosphere, my dear children, each and every organism in our biosphere, they are passing several stages in their life to become an adult. And it is a cyclic process. For each and every organism, in order to become an adult, they should pass these cycles or these stages. So each and every organism passing these stages to become an adult. So life cycle means passing these passing these cycles from childish era to adult era as a cyclic process from generation to generation. So this is what do you mean by the life cycle, my dear children. So we got a good knowledge about the life cycles and and we identified that there are different stages in life cycles. Some organisms, they have similar life stages. Their morphological features are somewhat similar. In some organisms, their morphological features are different from stage to stage. And if you take plants also, in plants we can also observe different stages in their life. However, if you take a plant, their stages are somewhat similar. Actually, they can say that 100% similar from one stage to another. Only different stage is their seed stage. Okay. Then after from plantlet to the bigger plant, we can observe the same similar features. Okay. Only the size is getting differed. There are some animals who are showing dramatical changes, dramatical morphological changes from one stage to another. Butterfly and mosquito are pretty much good examples for those. There are some animals who are showing like not that much dramatical changes, but however like 50-50, the body is somewhat different than the other adult organisms. Good example is cockroach. Cockroach, if you take a cockroach, the life cycle of a cockroach is somewhat similar to the mosquitoes, but however there are some certain similarities between the adult and the nymphal stage or the younger stage of the cockroach. Okay, there are some similarities, but however by looking at those two, we can come up to a certain conclusion that the nymph is going to be a cockroach. But however, there are certain differences. We can say that the life cycle is not that much similar from stage to stage, not that much similar. Okay, but in a mosquito, very dissimilar or they are different. If you take an organism or animal like rat, their life stages are similar from one stage to another. So by that way, we identified several stages of life in several organisms with similar features and with dissimilar features and somewhat closely related features. Okay, right then, my dear children. So within that, we'll be concluding the first chapter related to the lesson. Within our next chapter, we'll be studying about further things related to the life cycles of animals specially. So we'll be taking several animals and we'll be identifying what are the stages, special features within their each of the life cycle stages. So my dear children, we'll discuss the stages of life cycles or the life cycle of animals within our next chapter.